Hi there, we are on day 3 of composition 2. So we are moving past the topic proposal, which was your homework yesterday, and we're moving on to some research. I have internet research here, but we're actually doing all kinds of research. I'm calling it internet research to separate it from the field research. So I want to talk about finding sources and triangulating those sources today. Your homework will be to find some sources, and for each source, you're going to write a one-page response, just like we did for the student work. So you're going to talk about content, organization, and style. You'll do that for your first source and then for your second source. So that's why I said find 2 sources and do a startup research page response for each one of them. Tomorrow is the same thing. So by the time you're finished, you'll have 4 sources. Okay, let's first of all go into how to find sources. And I have this website that I thought was pretty helpful. And it says 6 tips to finding your research paper sources that set you apart. So this gives you an idea of the kinds of things that, the kinds of advice that people are giving about finding sources. It's pretty straightforward. I would like for you to read this, but it starts with Wikipedia, goes on to the research library, using secondary sources that were cited in the original sources you read, following the trail of citations to primary sources. And then I really like these last 2 steps. Mix up the type of research. And again, these are steps that set your sources apart. So mix up the types of research, and they've given you a few different types. And then the last tip is to get at least 1 source per page of your research paper. So our research paper is going to be 8 to 10 pages. That means you would probably be using about 8 to 10 sources. However, we are supplementing that with some field research. So we don't necessarily need that many. I just thought that was a really good tip. Okay, so please read that article. And I'm going to go into this document that I have for you about your sources. So we just covered this part right here. The first thing I really want to get into today is the difference between a general internet search, like using Google, and an academic search. So I have this column here. Internet searches are good if you want a wide amount of information, a lot of really surface level information, but academic searches are better if you want to go deep on one particular subject or one particular area of your subject. So let's start with internet searches. They're good if you're looking for your beginning, your preliminary research, and they're good if you already know the title or the author of your source. If I know the title and author, I'm not going to log into an academic search database and type that in. I could just put that in Google. I do want to talk about some issues with Google, and I'm sure you probably already know these, but Google is definitely biased sometimes because the sites that are linked on Google come from businesses. A lot of them are ads or sponsored content, and your search results usually at the top will be labeled ad or sponsored content, which means they're trying to sell something. So if I'm trying to do an in-depth research paper, I don't necessarily want to read things that somebody who's trying to sell something is telling me. You probably also know that the searches are tailored to you individually. So Alexa is listening to everything you say, and Alexa just started talking to me. Your search results are based on your browsing location, and they give you things that they think you're going to click on. So you know that all of the search results are tailored to you individually. But there's also some invisible links that are not available through Google. So sources that are just publishing things for individual people or for certain organizations, they don't necessarily have external links, and so they would not be included in Google. And that has to do with the way that they're coded and all of that. So when I'm doing my wide internet searches, Google is totally okay as long as you remember these few pointers. You might also use Wikipedia It is written as an encyclopedia. It's not written as a scholarly type of article. So that means it's relevant to real life. It's fast, but it's not necessarily credible because we know that anybody can go on Wikipedia and edit it. So for a beginning internet search, Wikipedia is just great. And in fact, you should definitely check the citations at the bottom because that will lead you to sources that you could perhaps use in your essay. Okay, so while it's not a great source, it'll lead you to other good sources. All right, I think that was pretty basic stuff about internet searches. Let's go over and talk about academic searches now. So academic searches are good if you want to find academic articles, primary sources, or technical sources. Academic searches will probably lead you to journals, and we call journals periodicals. Sometimes they're called scholarly journals, but they're periodicals because they're like magazines or newspapers that come out every period of time, like they come out every day or every month. Usually they're only available by subscription, which is why we would use our university library, because our university library pays for subscriptions so that we have access to sources that are not available over here on Google. Scholarly journals are generally also peer-reviewed. So that means that in order to be published in this journal, other experts in the field had to review it and make sure that it was credible. So not only is it written by an expert, but then it is also reviewed by other experts before it's published. The articles in scholarly journals will usually have an abstract, which is just a summary at the beginning. So this helps you because sometimes the articles are pretty long and you can just read through the abstracts very quickly and decide if it's going to be a good source for you or not. Some of you might be familiar with Google Scholar, which also helps you find academic articles. So you can find journals, patents, theses, court proceedings, etc. And I have the definition of a thesis over here. It's not the definition that we're used to. Okay, so pretty basic stuff, just the difference between internet searches and academic searches. I have some tips for academic searches here. First of all, you would pick a database, and you could certainly do an advanced search. Then you would want to filter, choose a source, read the abstract, and then check the keywords so that they can give you a guide to further keywords that you could be searching for. I'm going to go ahead and log into the library database, and so I'm going to log off now, and the next video will be once we're actually in the library database. Okay? See you guys in a minute.